the conversation with the Morning Majlis, Pulse 95.
The party of the group, the party of the elites, they're all getting ready, and it is the big G7 that happened.
Oh, yeah.
It concluded yesterday.
It concluded yesterday. It started on Friday, the 11th, and it concluded yesterday, Sunday. And world leaders, basically, they gathered in the Corniche resort of Carbis Bay for face-to-face meetings at the summit of G7 nations. And basically, the G7 is an organization of the world's 7 largest so-called advanced economies. They are Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK, and the United States. Now, China has never actually been a member, despite its large economy and having the world's biggest population, because its relatively low level of wealth per person means it is not seen as an advanced economy in the way the G7 members are. But discussing what happened over the weekend. Now, the G7 leaders in Cornwall, looking at who was actually present. Now, leading the summit was Boris Johnson, of course, from the UK. Justin Trudeau was there from Canada. Emmanuel Macron from France was there. Angela Merkel from Germany was there as well. Mario Draghi from Italy, Yoshihide Suga from Japan, of course, President Joe Biden from the US, and Ursula von der Leyen representing the EU, even though the EU is not a member of the G7, but is usually part of the G7 summits. Now, during the summit, they discuss a lot of important things, and at the heart of the 3-day meeting was actually the response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and that was the biggest issue that they had on their agenda for sure to discuss. And Boris Johnson, in particular, hailed a big step towards vaccinating the world. He discussed this actually yesterday on the last day of the summit, as the G7 made new commitments to provide, get this, 1 billion doses to the poorest countries. That is their commitment now. And the richest nations promised a great global recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. So now they're pledging 1 billion doses to the poorest countries. And that was like the biggest headline on their agenda that happened yesterday. So according to Boris Johnson, he said after the discussion in Cornwall, England, he said there has been a fantastic degree of harmony. We set a target to vaccinate the world by the end of next year. And the group said it would also fund or redirect the supply of 1 billion doses in 2021 to less advantaged countries, having secured 870 extra jabs at the summit itself. And total G7 commitments since the start of the pandemic provide for a total of over 2 billion vaccine doses, with the commitments since we last met in February 2021, including here in Carbis Bay, providing for 1 billion doses over the next year. And those were the words of the official communique of the meeting. So this is what really happened. That was like the major headline over there. There were other discussions as well that took place at the summit.
Yeah, there was climate change is also another aspect that we'll talk later on in the program about. And but we're just looking at the G7 as a whole. It's great that world leaders, a big diplomatic event took place, and it's great that it was also a public appearance of the Queen, which is really great to see. Joe Biden even said that the Queen reminded him of his mother, and he had invited the Queen to visit their White House, which is really good to see. In terms,
I don't know if that's appropriate for him to say to the Queen of England.
Roughly the same age.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, the Queen has that persona, and Joe Biden has that vibe of flattering people and overwhelming them with some great words and kind words that he has had to say. But, you know, when you talk about G7 as an organization and an existence, it seems like a very ceremonial event. Everyone's exchanging gifts, everyone's happy. There's a one-directional approach to saying, all right, we need to counter China's influence. And and China coming back with some responses saying that, the world can't be controlled by just a group of, these 7 countries or whatever. And if you call them the biggest economies, surely you've got to take into question or consideration India. India is a massive economy, and it's not part of the G7. Yes, it is part of the big greater G20 or wherever, but then when it comes to this G7, it's like the cool kids of the big group are meeting together. So they have the G20s, they have this G7, and it's just... is it really required that this summit is happening, and then was it really necessary? But it did get the global attention. G7 pours fantasy amounts into fossil fuels as CO2 emissions are forecast for the second biggest annual rise ever. The G7 leaders really seem to be having a good time presenting their empty climate commitments and repeating old unfulfilled promises. Of course, this calls for a steak and lobster barbecue celebration while jet planes perform aerobatics in the sky above the G7 resort. So clearly
She's not happy.
No. But yeah, that is the reality at the moment. But we'll delve into the climate change pledges in greater detail for sure. But do stay tuned to Pulse 95. This was our analysis of the famous G7 meeting. And if you've got any particular thoughts, do drop us a text on 4215. Next, we shift our focus a bit more locally in terms of the Abu Dhabi's requirements on the green Al Husn to access malls. That's interesting to see in terms of how that is going to be implemented. So do stay tuned and stay with us here on the Morning Majlis. We'll be back after a bit more of musical entertainment.
Pulse 95. The Morning Majlis, talking the stories that are shaping headlines. This is Pulse 95.
This is Pulse 95, and a very warm welcome back onto the Morning Majlis. Now, we've been talking about this at the start of the program, and just a bit of a reminder for all of you who are joining us now is, of course, over the weekend, over the last few days, we had the big G7 meeting, and that was the biggest thing that happened on the global scale. And David Attenborough had warned that humans could be on the verge of destabilizing the entire planet. So climate change had to be something that had to be discussed. And there has been an announcement recently by the G7 who promised to move away from coal plants unless they have technology to capture carbon emissions. So what's going on at the moment?
Well, this comes as Sir David Attenborough warned that basically humans could be on the verge of destabilizing the entire planet with this. And he said that G7 leaders face the most important decisions in human history, especially at such a dire time that the world is going through. And the coal announcement came from the White House, basically, which said that it was the first time the leaders of wealthy nations had committed to keeping the projected global temperature rise to 1.5 Celsius. Now, that requires a range of urgent policies, and chief among them being phasing out coal burning unless it includes carbon capture technology. We know that coal is basically the world's dirtiest major fuel, and ending its use is definitely seen as a major step by environmentalists. But they also want guarantees that rich countries will deliver on previous promises to help poorer nations cope with the climate change situation. So basically, the G7, they pledged to end the funding of new coal generation in developing countries and offer up to $2.8 billion to stop using that fuel. And climate change definitely has been one of the key themes at the three-day summit in Cornwall. One of them being obviously the pandemic, the other one being climate change for sure. And one of them as well, they discussed the situation with China as well.
Yeah, and it's great in terms of the idea behind the fact that they want to reduce their carbon emissions and the footprints, but to what extent is going to get going? That's a big problem here, isn't it? They said they will commit to protecting 30% of global land and marine areas for nature by 2030. They are also expected to pledge to almost halve their emissions by 2030 relative to 2010 levels. The UK has already surpassed that commitment. Prime Minister Boris Johnson also said that that this is something that they need to get it done, isn't it? And what's the reaction like that? Sir David had sent a video message to the G7 leaders saying the natural world today is greatly diminished. Our climate is warming fast. That is beyond doubt. Our societies and nations are unequal, and that is sadly pain to see.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, climate change, it's a big issue that we're facing. The Earth's average temperature is about 15 degrees Celsius. That's about 59 degrees Fahrenheit, but has been much higher and lower in the past. But there are natural fluctuations in the climate, but scientists say temperatures are now rising faster than any other time. And this is linked to the greenhouse effect, which describes how the Earth's atmosphere traps some of the sun's energy. And that is a big problem. And solar energy radiating back to space from the Earth's surface is absorbed by greenhouse gases and then re-emitted in all directions. So this basically heats both the lower atmosphere and the surface of the planet. So without this effect, the Earth would be about 30 degrees Celsius. That's about 86 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's more than what we are at right now, in about 30 degrees Fahrenheit. But that's colder and it's hostile to life. Now, scientists believe we are adding to the natural greenhouse effect with gases released from industry and agriculture, trapping more energy and increasing the temperature. So this is known as climate change or global warming. And this is a very major issue that the G7 leaders have discussed during the summit.
Yep, of course, and it will continue to be a massive issue that we'd like to address eventually in the end anyway, because but one person that has been quite vocal about this is this. There we go.
Greta Thunberg.
Yeah, let's.
That was Greta Thunberg, the Swedish environmental activist who is very well known for her challenging world leaders to take immediate action for climate change mitigation. But I'm wondering, who was she talking to?
David Attenborough. So that was David Attenborough's voice, and he was having, obviously sharing his thoughts on the wonderful work that she's been trying to highlight. But obviously, he did acknowledge that his generation hasn't done the right thing by reaching the stage that where we are at this stage, as he has also been quite vocal about the world of climate change at this stage as well. Now, Greta Thunberg also said the climate and ecological crisis is rapidly escalating. G7 pours fantasy amounts into fossil fuels as CO2 emissions are forecast for second biggest annual rise ever. But the G7 leaders really seem to be having a good time presenting their empty climate commitments and repeating old, unfulfilled promises. That is what Greta Thunberg has Instagrammed about as her response to the big G7 meetings and commitments. So one person is certainly not very pleased with what's happening on the global stage. Well, stay with us on the Morning Majlis. We've got plenty of musical entertainment lined up for you as we continue to discuss the big stories shaping the headlines across the world, and here locally in the Emirate of Sharjah, as well as we look forward to discussing the world of sports with you up next on the Morning Majlis. So do stay tuned to Pulse 95, and if you'd like to share your thoughts and sentiments with us, you can do so on the text lines 4215.
Pulse 95. Between local lines. Notes from the Emirate.
Well, His Excellency Dr. Tariq Sultan bin Khadim, member of the Executive Council of the Emirate of Sharjah and the chairman of the Department of Human Resources, explained that the department is constantly working on developing specialized training materials that it provides within its programs, and that is to train Sharjah government employees and focuses on their conformity with modern work developments. Now, also, His Excellency added that the department is moving towards specialized training in systematic courses and programs, and that is to keep pace with the rapid and successive developments in various fields with the aim of upgrading employees, also refining their skills, developing knowledge capabilities, and also empowering them with modern tools. So basically, they're coming up with, or they're designing, those new specialized programs, tourism programs, that is, right?
Yes,
for tourism development.
Yes, it is. Looking at the capabilities and competencies of the employees to make it easier for them to keep pace with the exceptional changes taking place in the current time period around them as well. So what they call it, this new program, is called a Golden Guest Service for Tourism Development. That's interesting. It is keen in selecting and designing these specialized programs to be compatible with the Emirates vision. It came in line with Sharjah's directions aimed at strengthening its position as a leading destination in tourism, which requires preparing qualified national cadre to work within this vital strategic sector. So they basically held a remote training via Microsoft Teams. They targeted reception staff dealing with the public, customer service, and workers in the field of guidance and tourism. Now, I remember discussing this in great detail on one of the video reports that we talked about how the concierge service in hotels and even the reception staff, they must be well acquainted as tour guides, because they are the people that the hotel or tourists will first approach. Wherever I've been to in the world, I've always gone to the reception staff, because I don't book those tour packages. I don't need a tour guide. I mean, it's great, but it's an added service, right? So I like to explore things on my own, and you do that by asking people. And sometimes reception staff in other parts of the world, and maybe here as well, they just do their job. I only know check-in. I don't know where to go. I was like, hey, is there a closest place where I can have this? Is there a closest ATM here? What's the best attraction I can explore within a few minutes walk? And the standard answer sometimes people say, I don't know. So that's not cool. That's not good enough, really. And this is great how Sharjah Tourism and Sharjah Department of Human Resources are working on this. And this is why it's great for us as radio presenters to be so acquainted with the city as well, and in terms of us telling you what to explore and what to see when you are going out and about and looking for hidden gems.
Yeah.
For you, Rania?
Probably souks. I love souks.
Souq al-Asra would be nice.
Souk. There are some souks in Jebel Hassan.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There are some souks over there.
I advocate that.
In the East Coast, yeah. It's split three ways, actually. It's part owned by Oman, Fujairah, and Sharjah, of course, which makes it very interesting and very unique, Jebel Hassan. And I love their parks, their public parks, their corniche, the beach, obviously, because it's facing out to the Arabian Sea. And yeah, they Jebel Hassan, it plays host to 3 souks. It's located just behind the Rashid bin Ahmed Al Qasmi Mosque. The tiny seafood souk includes no more than 20 counters where local fishermen basically they display fresh catch twice a day. And it's located adjacent to the seafood souk. It's the fruit and vegetable market as well. And a short walk away, tucked behind Al-Hassan Fortress, is the town's covered market, where a number of traders, basically, they sell a mixture of souvenirs, toys, and clothes. So they do have those 3 main souks over there. Definitely those are the hidden gems of Jebel Al-Hassan or Sharjah, as well as Wadi Al-Hulu. I love Wadi Al-Hulu. It's a welcome valley of lush greenery on the Sharjah Kalba Highway. It's close to the road's highest point through the Hajar Mountains as well. And obviously that greenery is due to free-flowing underground water, which is why the little town that bears the wadi's name managed to attract residents despite its lofty and remote location. So I love going to Wadi Al-Hulu as well. What is your favorite hidden gem?
Wow. Now, the fact that you've pulled things out from the eastern region.
From the eastern region.
Yeah,
You're going to say Khorfakan. It's not a hidden gem anymore.
No,
it's actually a tourist destination now. Everyone wants to go to Khorfakan. And I have actually friends that came from abroad.
Okay.
They said, we want to go to Khorfakan.
See?
Yeah.
They must have been listening to Pulse 95. Surely the Morning Majlis advocates for that. Look, within Sharjah City.
Or to Steve Harvey.
Steve Harvey, yes, exactly.
He
maybe.
did.
Yeah, maybe.
He did go to Khorfakan and he made a great coverage.
I would say I'm a big sea person. I love waterfront areas.
Me too.
So even in the summers, I don't care. It's fine for me. So Al-Muntaza Street, still, I advocate for that if you were in Sharjah City Centre, in Sharjah City area. And, there's a new little theme park / outdoor entertainment destination that you can go visit, free to enter as well.
Shark Island?
Shark Island, interesting.
It's located just behind Khorfakan's container port.
Yeah, that's true. For me, in Sharjah, in Khorfakan areas, I would say the Heart Beach. There's a Heart Beach, and that's quite interesting. And it's a secluded spot. So you're basically within the cliffs. You have your own spots, and you can check that out. So that's interesting. That's one of the areas that I really like so far. But Hassan, I'll advocate for that because the Corniche itself, there's a number of food truck food outlets that are along those little Corniche, and it got extended
Part
as well.
Part of the souks. Yeah.
It is, and it has also been extended, so they've actually made waterfront properties, and there's a little bridge going on to a small little island that they made, and wonderful dessert options, I've got to tell you that. Got to give you that, Dibul Hassan is an interesting spot to go. Hidden gems as well within Sharjah City, of course, Zawaya Walk, which isn't that much of a hidden gem nowadays, but it is a great place to go down and check out. So let us know what is your favorite spot, and we'd love to get your thoughts on the program here on the Morning Majlis. If you've got a particular hidden gem in the Emirates of Sharjah, Flying Saucer, guys, if you want a nice all-day breakfast spot, Flying Saucer it is. Go down there and have a wonderful breakfast there and then soak in the artistic atmosphere that place has to offer. But there's lots of people coming back with their responses. One person has said she's Hiking Village. That's interesting.
Ooh.
Yeah. No name on that one. More people are coming in with their text responses as well. One person also said Maliha. Great, yeah, great place to go down. And no names on those texts either. So do drop us a name at the end of those texts for us to give you an appropriate shout out as well. Stay with us. This is the Morning Majlis, only on Pulse 95. Time now for us to welcome the news headlines courtesy of Iman Al-Majali. And we'll continue the discussions from there on. This is the Morning Majlis, only on Pulse 95.
Stay fit. Stay fit. Stay fit.
So did anyone catch any of the games yesterday from Euro 2020 matches? So yesterday, England played against Croatia, and basically England won the game.
Quite well.
Yeah, 1-0. Mm-hmm. And Austria also won against North Macedonia 3-1. And Netherlands as well played against Ukraine, also won 3-2. And today we're expecting Scotland to face Czech Republic at 5 p.m. Later on, Poland versus Slovakia at 8 p.m. And later, a game that I'll be definitely watching at 11 p.m., Spain versus Sweden.
Oh, wow. That's going to be an encounter.
That's going to be a good one.
It's going to be a good game for sure. And look, so far it looks like France is going to be a very dominating force for sure for this.
It's playing tomorrow.
In a very big game.
Germany versus France. Tomorrow, 11 p.m.
Clash of the Titans. That is a game that no one should ever miss.
No, it's not.
We're definitely going to be glued to the screen for that game. That's a little mini final before and for the opening game. So it's going to be a great contest. And Euros are back, and it's great to see the performance so far. And England had a very clinical finish to that game against Croatia. So whilst the cricket disappointed England supporters, the football cheered them up. Cricket, they lost quite miserably to New Zealand. And on the halftime show on Saturday, I feel kind of ashamed because I said, oh man, this game is going to be a draw for sure. It's going to drag on, and no, there will be no result. But look, tides turned, and there was a result in cricket, and then England finally helping the fans recover from that loss with a 1-0 emphatic win over Croatia, and they avenged their semi-final defeats in 2018. They lost to Croatia. They could have made it to the final, and then that big song, "It's coming home, it's coming home, football's coming home," was diminished. But now it's the spirits have rekindled, and they're back up and running. But another sporting story is
a sad one.
Yes,
we have a sad story as well.
Yeah, the player suffered cardiac arrest. It's a positive news to an extent, because it was shocking. I saw the footage. I didn't catch the game when it was happening, but I caught the footage, and it was scary. Yeah, literally, a player suffers a cardiac arrest on pitch and collapses. And there's the fans, moment of silence there. The players surrounded where he was. The captain helped in the CPR, and luckily they did get him restored, and he was in hospital.
We're talking about Christian Eriksen.
Yes. Yeah. And in hospital, he said that continue the game because that's what I want. And the game continued, and sadly Denmark did lose. But news. And
he collapsed actually shortly before halftime.
Yeah.
In Denmark's opening Euro 2020 game against Finland. It was on Saturday, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was worrying in terms of
He's only 29, I believe.
He's only 29, and it does happen to sports men, and especially with the stress of the game and the nerves of being in such an important encounter as well. Yes, sadly that is the scenario, and that's what the doctors have told us, that he did suffer a cardiac arrest. And literally what the team officials say, they say that when they saw him on the ground, they said he was gone. He literally was gone, and then by a miracle he's been able to survive that. So that is something that we'll talk about as well later on in halftime show. Another thing is that we're excited about is this.
Oh, yes.
It is.
Do you know how to dance the Yola dance?
Yeah,
You tried, I remember.
I have done it, and I've won.
In public.
I've won a competition.
And you won 500 dirhams.
Yes,
on it.
I did. I got paid to dance, which is very good. Well, the UAE are going to continue their campaign. Okay, they're going to be taking on Vietnam, and the team says they will fight with all their might to reach the third and final phase.
It's going to be tomorrow, though, right?
Yes,
8:45.
8:45.
Yeah.
And then, look, if you're a sports fan, you're spoiled for choice. You have that game, then you have France and Germany. Khalas, let's go down to Al Jada. We'll do a Pulse 95 evening. Park our cars, watch the game, party it up, and that's what we really, really want to do. Well, stay with us on Pulse 95 for sure. Text lines are open, 4215. Do drop us a text, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts on your expectations from the encounter. For the time being, the Morning Majlis team shall be heading off.
Yes, we will be. But if you want to catch our conversations, you can head on to our YouTube channel, Pulse 95 Radio. Just look for the Morning Majlis playlist. Subscribe, share, and like. Don't forget that. And also for the audio experience, you can head on to Spotify, Apple Podcast, and SoundCloud. Thank you for joining us on the Morning Majlis. Until tomorrow, here is Pulse 95 Radio Entertainment.
If you liked this episode of the Morning Majlis, drop a like and subscribe.
95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.